President Donald Trump's White House is all about one thing: girl power. Yesterday, President Donald Trump signed a historic executive order that he and I both agree is one of those weird things that we never thought we would have to sign in this country. But apparently it takes now a presidential declaration and document to protect girls when they play intercollegiate sports.
In a few moments, I'll sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports. It's about time. Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
As you can tell by the applause, he was surrounded by a bevy of young female athletes, women from all ages, from all schools, and they were there. They were invited to the White House to witness this historic signing of this executive order that will keep all men, whether they identify as a woman or not, out of sports. It's something that's been a long time coming. And Riley Gaines, who was actually there, you can see her. She's kind of hiding in the background there. She was singled out by the president after during his speech. She was one of the tipping points where her competitions when she was swimming for the University of Kentucky versus Leah Thomas, a biological male who said he was a female and ended up coming in and dominating the sport. That's when this whole weird, bizarre issue took really an international spotlight. Donald Trump now ending all of that. And he says any school that goes against this executive order, any school that allows men, biological men, to compete with women or share locker rooms with women or shower with women or any of those things, put women in a position where they could be, physically injured just for competing, will lose their taxpayer funding immediately.
With my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding. So this will effectively end the attack on female athletes at public K-12 schools and virtually all U.S. colleges and universities.
And he doesn't want it to go on at all. And the interesting thing about this is that when President Donald Trump signed this bill, or when he signed this executive order, rather to keep all men out of women's sports, it's not just at the high school level or the elementary school level or the middle school level. It's not just at the collegiate level, but it's also internationally, because in 2028, the United States of America is set to host in Los Angeles, California, the Olympic Games. And we all remember what happened during the Olympic Games in 2024. There was that horrible incident where the boxer who identified as a male punched the female athlete, and she had to withdraw immediately because she knew she could not handle it. She would be putting herself in physical harm. And President Trump is putting the international community on notice. That kind of activity will not be allowed here in the United States or in Los Angeles during the Olympic Games.
In Los Angeles in 2028, my administration will not stand by and watch men beat and batter female athletes, and we're just not going to let it happen, and it's going to end, and it's ending right now, and nobody's going to be able to do a damn thing about it, because when I speak, we speak with authority.
Not only that, but he's got his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, out talking to the International Olympic Committee, saying, hey, just so you guys know, that's not going to fly. If you've got any transgender athletes in your cadre of athletes, they need to either reassess their biological gender, reassess where they feel they can mostly compete, or just, stay home.
Marco is going to make clear to the International Olympic Committees there, and he's going to make it as clear as anybody can make it, that America categorically rejects transgender lunacy. We want them to change everything having to do with the Olympics and having to do with this absolutely ridiculous subject that we even have to talk about this subject. If you went back 10 years or 15 years and you would move forward and listen to this. You'd say, what the hell are they talking about? This is impossible. But you have people out there, Democrats, that are still totally in favor. They can't win the argument. They can't win a debate. They look like fools, and they continue to go on.
And it is really one of the, and it's almost like the more common sense we get in the United States of America, thanks to President Donald Trump, the less common sense the Democrats want you to know that they actually have. By the way, I love how he calls Secretary of State Marco Rubio Marco. Not Secretary Rubio or anything like that. Just Marco, because, we're all friends. In the Trump administration, it's like family. It's like a one big, happy, hardworking family that's making America great again. And then Donald Trump called all the girls around, called them all together and said, come on down here. He sat down at the little table and they all gathered around him and he signed it. And he said, oh, we need a good one. And luckily, it appears Donald Trump delivered one of his best signatures ever.
You want to do this? Watch what I do, and then I'm going to give you some pens, okay? You ready? What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor? You ready? We'll do a good job. Wait, let me press that. I want to make this a really good signature, because this is a big one, right? Oh, I think we have a 10. We have a 10.
God bless you, Mr. President.
Yeah. And then he holds it up for all the girls to see, and then he holds it up for everyone to see, and they take some photos, and women, and just like that, women's sports is safe again.
Pretty good, huh?
Good job. Just like that, President Donald Trump has, another promise made, another promise kept. He's keeping men out of women's sports. He's protecting young girls. He's protecting young women, and he's protecting Americans from any kind of not just physical harm and emotional distress, but also crazy transgender lunacy. He's wiping out DEI. DEI is dead, not just in the government, not just in your schools, but also in women's sports. So another exciting day. By the way, Donald Trump rating his own signature a 10 it's one of the highlights so far of my 2025. Definitely one of the highlights of my 2025. Also, yesterday at the White House, President Donald Trump continued with girl power and female empowerment as he invited Pam Bondi into the Oval Office, where she was sworn in as Attorney General of the United States, sworn in by Justice Clarence Thomas, and she was thrilled to be there. She was so excited. She's excited to get to work, and she promised President Donald Trump, I will deliver for you a fair and just Justice Department. Once again, we're gonna drain the swamp, and we're gonna start immediately.
I will restore integrity to the Justice Department, and I will fight violent crime throughout this country and throughout this world and make America safe again. Thank you.
The pieces are all falling into place. Donald Trump had a couple of other wins. He had his Department of Housing and Urban Development Secretary confirmed. Doug Collins was confirmed as the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, so he can go in and start cleaning up that department. We're still waiting on the RFK Jr. confirmation. We're still waiting on the budget director. We're still waiting on Kash Patel at the FBI. The Democrats in the Senate weaponizing their little bit of power once again, and they are dragging this out as long as humanly possible. Now into February. We're going into the second week of February, and it looks like it's going to take several more days because the Democrats just can't come to grips with the fact that they lost this election and that Donald Trump won. They lost this election, and Donald Trump gets to choose the heads of these departments who are going to guide the United States into the new golden age. That's something that, while they come to grips with, Donald Trump is going to do whatever he can with whatever powers he can to change the world. And another thing that there are two big stories that really have been going on yesterday were, of course, Gaza. Donald Trump, we told you yesterday all about his new plan, his new directive. He said, let's give the United States of America Gaza. Give us Gaza and we will do the rest. We will clear it out. We'll relocate the Palestinian people to a secure location in Egypt or Jordan. We will rebuild. We will disarm. We will get rid of the munitions and the ammunition, and we'll fill the tunnels. And then we'll create this amazing Riviera of the Middle East that everyone will be able to enjoy, that all All the people around the world will be able to enjoy and invest in and take part in it. And we're going to create massive jobs and opportunity. And it's just going to be an incredible place for everyone to live. And of course, when Donald Trump came up with an idea that was unique and different that no one had ever heard of before, that's when the International Committee just lost their minds. They just couldn't believe. They're like, Donald Trump is going against the grain. No one's ever suggested this before. And of course, they neglect to mention that all the ideas that people have suggested never seem to work. But President Trump went on Truth Social and said, look, let me clarify this for you. The Gaza Strip would be turned over to the United States by Israel at the conclusion of fighting. The Palestinians, people like Chuck Schumer, which was there you go, would have already been resettled in far safer and more beautiful communities with new and modern homes in the region. They would actually have a chance to be happy, safe, and free. The U.S., working with great development teams from all over the world, would slowly and carefully begin the construction of what would become one of the greatest and most spectacular developments of its kind on Earth. No soldiers by the U.S. would be needed. Stability for the region would reign. And this is Donald Trump's further explanation of what he's planning, because immediately after he mentioned it, the fake news media and the propaganda machine started churning out things that were just patently false, things Donald Trump never said or alluded to. And one of those was a long-term occupation by American troops in Gaza. And Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, was asked about that yesterday. And here's exactly what she said about Donald Trump's plan for Gaza and the United States' actual involvement in bringing peace and stability to the region.
On Gaza, the president has spent basically his entire public career criticizing foreign entanglements, nation building, sending American troops to fight abroad, particularly in the Middle East. This plan seems like it could ultimately involve all of those things. Can you explain this reversal and how building and owning Gaza squares with America First foreign policy?
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region. And let me just take a step back here, because this is an out-of-the-box idea. That's who President Trump is. That's why the American people elected him. And his goal is lasting peace in the Middle East for all people in the region. And as I said in my opening remarks, we've had the same people pushing the same solutions to this problem for decades. And it's been made very clear to the president that the United States needs to be involved in this rebuilding effort to ensure stability in the region for all people. But that does not mean boots on the ground in Gaza. It does not mean American taxpayers will be funding this effort. It means Donald Trump, who is the best deal maker on the planet, is going to strike a deal with our partners in the region.
And that's something that clearly shows short-sightedness on the part of that reporter, because Donald Trump is not the kind of person that's just going to spend money. In fact, what we see now with the USAID and with DOGE and with the Department of Education and all these other initiatives that Donald Trump is undergoing to whittle down the size and the investment of the American people, with all the money that Donald Trump is forcing NATO to pony up for their role in keeping the world safe and not just relying on American taxpayer dollars, it would seem that Donald Trump's plan does not need or does not require sole American support. That's never been what Donald Trump has been about. He's going to travel the world. He's going to talk to foreign leaders, and he's going to get security and investment and construction and all different countries that have a direct I guess you would say a direct interest in making sure there's peace in the Middle East to be part of this project. Because also, if your country is part of the product, you're going to protect it. If Israel and Jordan and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Dubai and all these other countries in that area, Iraq, if they can all come together in some way and each supply, any part of this project, then they will work diligently to keep it safe and not see it destroyed. Donald Trump knows that, and that is his plan. Mike Waltz, who is the national security advisor, former congressman from Florida, our good buddy, he was also explaining how this is a plan that Donald Trump has put forward that he believes won't just work, but will also get other minds in the region thinking about how they could self-solve the issue of constant war between Israel and Israel's neighbors.
I mean, you have literally nearly 2 million people living in a place that has thousands and thousands of unexploded ordnance and bombs. It's in some places like a minefield. You have buildings that are collapsing and unsafe. You have no sewage, no running water. It has become completely unlivable with this war that Hamas started on October 7th. And I, as a veteran, can tell you it is despicable and sad that groups like Hamas, Al-Qaeda, ISIS literally sacrifice the lives and the livelihoods of their own people to achieve some type of ideological gain. But I think what the president is just acknowledging is we've been looking at this over the last weeks and months, and frankly, he's been thinking about it since October 7th, and that war is, everybody's heart breaks for the Palestinian people across the region, and rightly so, but he's not seeing any realistic solutions on how those miles and miles and miles of debris are going to be cleared, how those, essentially unexploded bombs are going to be removed, how these people are physically going to live for at least a decade, if not longer, it's going to take to do this. So the fact that nobody has a realistic solution, and he puts some very bold, fresh, new ideas out on the table, I don't think should be criticized in any way. I think it's going to bring the entire region to come with their own solutions.
So there you go. President Donald Trump standing up and saying, we are going to own Gaza. We are going to remove people from Gaza. We are going to rebuild Gaza. And it's going to be amazing. President Donald Trump doing that has sparked a discussion and a controversy and a movement that people have not seen ever in the Middle East. And now it becomes a game of, I put forward an idea. If you don't like my idea, come up with one of your own. But if you don't come up with something better, we're going with mine. And that may be enough to get Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Jordan and all of these other people, all of these other countries in the region to come up with an idea that is palatable, that is executable, and that is going to keep the entire region, Israel and Gaza and everyone else, safe and stable for the long term. We're not looking for short-term solutions anymore. We're looking for long-term solutions, which brings us to USAID. The USAID will tell you the spending that the USAID has been doing on things that you would never think that the American taxpayers would want money spent on is just atrocious. And we're learning new things every single day. Yesterday, we learned that Politico, which is a major propaganda platform for the Democrat Party and a platform that for the last decade has been constantly attacking Donald Trump on the daily, was not only the mouthpiece for the Democrat Party, but was being funded by the USAID to the tune of over $8 million. And Caroline Leavitt breached that subject in her press briefing room. I'd like to point out where the Politico was present.
So upon coming out here to the briefing room, I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than $8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayers' dime will no longer be happening. The DOJ team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that we are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort.
Okay, there you go. We're going line by line, folks. We're going through this thing from the beginning to the end. We're looking for the money, we're looking for the waste, and we're cutting it out. And if Politico, a political blog that is anti-Trump, pro-Democrat, if they're getting $8 million in subsidized subscriptions, that ends now, because there's no reason at all. There's no reason at all other than, corruption and cronyism that money, that taxpayer money, should have been spent on an organization that has spent the last 10 years just bad-mouthing and bashing and investigating and reporting negatively on and propagandizing against the leader of the opposition party in the United States of America. We're going to see more crazy stuff about USAID. Plus, there's going to be there's going to be an interesting report about Kamala Harris, which we'll get to. I would like to point out that Donald Trump did something in response or in honor of President Ronald Reagan's 111th birthday, which is today. He had a Ronald Reagan statue and a Ronald Reagan portrait placed in the Oval Office. Ronald Reagan, who is deemed to be one of the greatest presidents in our history, would have turned 111 years old today. Also, Donald Trump had the FCC release the complete interview, unedited, that 60 Minutes held with Kamala Harris. We remember that Donald Trump brought suit against CBS because they edited deceptively the CBS 60 Minutes interview. It's now out there for all the world to see, all 1 hour of it. And it is just as confusing and volatile as you might think it is. CBS and 60 Minutes, Donald Trump posts on Truth Social, defrauded the public by doing something which has never to this extent been seen before. They 100% removed Kamala's horrible election-changing answers to questions and replaced them with completely different and far better answers taken from another part of the interview. This was election-changing stuff, election interference, and quite simply, election fraud at a level never seen before. CBS should lose its license, and the cheaters at 60 Minutes should all be thrown out, and this disreputable news show should be immediately terminated. With the new Democrat scandal that just arose with respect to USAID illegally paying large sums of money to Politico and other media outlets, the question must be asked: was CBS paid for committing this fraud? Many other questions to come. This will go down as the biggest broadcasting scandal in history. We will, of course, have more of that later today on our second podcast every day. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. And if you haven't heard it yet, oh man, you are missing out. You are missing out. You can find it wherever you download your podcast. We also live stream it on YouTube and Google and iHeart and all the other places. Wherever you get your podcast, you can download Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Or if you prefer to watch it live, go to YouTube. Whatever. Just here's what you do. Search Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, download, listen, and enjoy.